Still celebrating the female folk around the world, women groups and representatives of civil society organizations led by the Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center have appealed to Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu to reinstate the suspended guidelines on safe termination of pregnancy. The groups, in a walk to raise awareness, said the guidelines are important to make provision for termination of pregnancy in cases of incest, rape, and sexual, including gender-based violence. They highlighted that there has been a rise in the number of rape and incest cases leading to pregnancy, and that by law, these victims, including children, are unable to access safe abortion services. Following public criticism, the Lagos State government suspended the guideline exactly 1 week after its launch on June 29, 2022. In her remarks, the founding director of the center, Abiola Akinode-Afolabi, emphasized the need for the government to prioritize women's health, rights, and lives, despite the sentiments that may surround the matter. And now, to discuss this, we are joined by Emanuela Azu, Programs Director, Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center. It is actually nice having you join us at this time on the news and to celebrate the women all over the world. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So let's first start by understanding this. How significant is the International Women's Day to you?
The International Women's Day is really very significant because today is a day where women all over the world are celebrated, and to actually appreciate the work they have done. It also serves as a reminder of how we can forge a better world. And it also helps us to remember and acknowledge the contributions of women in various fields across the world. So today is really a very important day for me as a woman and for women all over the world as well.
So talking about creating a better world for women, what would you say are the challenges that they usually encounter in terms of their gender, and how do you think the society can deal with those issues?
And so the challenges women encounter are enormous. So they start from it depends on the side of the divide you find yourself. There are economic challenges, there are social issues, institutional issues, policy issues affecting women, because interestingly, the laws and policies in Nigeria are also not very friendly to a typical Nigerian woman, because, for instance, we have in our laws that a woman cannot confer her citizenship and several other discriminatory provisions in the Constitution of Nigeria and several other constitutions within the country Nigeria. We also have traditional and religious barriers impacting negatively on women in Nigeria. So there are several barriers affecting and also limiting the woman's.
Hello, Emanuela. Well, I think we just lost communication with Emanuela right there, and we hope that we'll be able to reestablish connection with her to have her talk more about how women are going through the challenges they are faced with in the society. And yes, Emanuela is back. Thank you so much for reconnecting with us. So I'd like you to just continue and conclude on what you were saying as regards the challenges women are facing and what the society can do to help them overcome these issues.
Okay, so there's a lot a typical Nigerian woman is facing. Like I said, starting from the economic hardship the Nigerian woman is facing, to several other issues, policy issues, environmental issues. If you also look at the way the climate in recent times, it's also impacting more on women in a very harsh manner. And then, so what are those things that can be done? So part of the things that can be done is to have a very friendly, gender-sensitive policies, laws, guidelines, constitutions in Nigeria, starting from the Constitution, policies on health, policies on education, policies generally, and laws generally are some of those very, very crucial first steps that we must take to ensure that the life of a Nigerian woman is relatively safe and stable. So,
okay.
In essence, just to reiterate that there is a need for an urgent policy review, constitutional review in Nigeria.
Okay, so let's now tie that to some sort of policies or guidelines that were recently created in Lagos State and suspended later. Now, of course, we understand that there was a walk by your group on Wednesday. I'd like to find out first, what were the primary reasons behind the suspension of the guidelines for safe termination of pregnancy by the Lagos State government, and how has the public criticism influenced this decision? Okay, so earlier I talked about the fact that your group had a walk, and it was about bringing back a set of guidelines that were initially stepped down by the Lagos State government, and I asked you why there was a suspension of that of those set of guidelines which are to do with the safe termination of pregnancy for victims. Now, what happened with those guidelines? Why were they suspended, and how did public criticism influence the situations around those particular guidelines?
Okay, so yes, in 2022, I think sometime in May 2022, the Lagos State government actually passed a policy on a guideline for the safe termination of pregnancies for legal indication. And so what the guideline was actually supposed to do was it actually stipulated guidelines on how medical practitioners could actually safely terminate pregnancies under several conditions that were stated within the guideline, conditions such as victims of a woman who had mental issue, a woman who is ill with either kidney cancer, and several other health challenges were also stipulated in that guideline. And then, so sometime exactly a week after that guideline was suspended, unfortunately, it was as a result of the poor media publication of that guideline. That guideline was actually labeled as an abortion guideline. So, of course, there are several groups and religious bodies, traditional institutions that do not in any way support any form of abortion. And so that actually led to the agitation that led to the suspension of the guideline. However, it was a completely different thing, but it was as a result of a misconception, of a misconceived media reportage and labeling of the law. Religious bodies rose up, and it was at the peak of election. And of course, you know, the Lagos State.
Emanuela, I think we may just need to move on from there, but then we tend to understand what the standpoint of the advocates are talking about as regards that particular set of rules. I am Lekan Onabanjo.